How do you recover after being in a relationship with an addict? That's a tough one, but we're going to talk it through. Hey, you, it's AD Roundtree. Welcome to this, your Wednesday edition of the show. Yeah, Wednesday. Excellent job, my friend. You are already halfway through yet another week. This is no small accomplishment. You're doing awesome. Hang in there. You got this. You are a badass. And if you need something, if there's anything I can do for you to make your Wednesday better, hit me up. I'm here with you. I'm here for you. At ADSXE is where you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at ADSXE. Put it in your phone now in case you need it later. Oh, by the way, thank you so much to everybody that's supporting the show on Patreon. You can do that too, patreon.com/ADSXE. As I always say, these are conversations about health and mental health, and I think those conversations should be free to all for all time. So I'll never charge a subscription fee to the podcast, and I'll never put it behind a paywall. And if you did want to support, well, you can do that at patreon.com/ADSXE and also listen to the podcast commercial free there. First and foremost, thank you for waiting around. I, as you may be able to hear, I'm a bit under the weather at the moment. I took a couple days off. Why? Well, it sort of ties into what we're talking about a little bit. One of the reasons that I am not doing what I was doing for 17 years is because, well, there wasn't time to do things like take a break or rest when you were sick. The radio industry is one that has been stretched, like many, incredibly thin. And I realized something. I realized I had all this unused vacation time and all this unused sick time. Now, I love my job. I love what I get to do, or I love what my job was. I love radio. I love hanging out with you every single day. And I wasn't really bothered about not taking vacation time. But I was bothered by the fact that I worked through a whole bunch of illness. I took it on the chin during COVID and worked through COVID not once, but twice. And it wasn't easy and it wasn't fun. And I made a decision that I wanted to do some things differently. The experience I had in Kosovo, taking care of my dad at the end of his life, bringing him back to America, and ultimately losing him, made me realize that when I do get back to work, I would like to do it in a way that allows me to A, spend the time I need to spend with the people that I love the most, and B, when I get sick, take a day or two off. And I don't know what the hell it is. I successfully dodged COVID while being in and out of hospitals, while taking international flights, while putting myself in all sorts of high-risk situations for COVID. And while I did get COVID while staying mostly at home for a year and a half, I didn't get COVID doing that. But I picked up something somewhere, and it was just more hassle than it was worth to talk over the last 3 days. Not awesome for people that are in podcasting or radio, but I made a decision that, you know what? I wasn't able to do this, but I'm going to take a couple days off. If podcasting is going to be a big part of my future, I should try not to do it when it is a hassle to do so because I'm sick. So I took a few days off. As you can hear, the throat's still a little ropey, but thank you for hanging out and thank you for waiting around for me. I hope you understand. And I am so happy to be back with you. Got a doozy of a question today from someone who wanted to stay anonymous, who said, "Hey, AD, I hope you're feeling better and you're going to be back to podcasting. I wanted to ask you if you'd be willing to do a podcast about a situation that I'm going through. The man I was in a relationship with, I recently found out that he has been seeing someone else. Long story short, we weren't living together anymore, but we were still seeing each other in a romantic relationship, or so I thought. He doesn't have those kind of feelings for me anymore. He just cares about me as a friend, but yet he continued to lead me on. He continued to let me think we still had something because he needed rides from me to and from work every day. I did his laundry every weekend, and I even gave him medicine when he didn't have any because I felt bad he couldn't afford it. We lived together at one point, but I had to ask him to leave because he has a problem with alcohol. Now I found out he's just been using me for these rides and for someone to do his laundry, and I feel so stupid. I wonder if you could do a podcast about how to get past this and how to start feeling better about myself again, because right now I feel like I have nothing left inside of me. I feel like he took everything from me, and I would just like some advice from you. Thanks, AD. Well, okay, that's a lot, and it's a lot more than someone can cover in a podcast. It's a lot more than someone who isn't qualified to talk about these things can cover in a podcast. But the first thing I can tell you about dealing with people who are addicts is, if you can, and this is not easy, don't take it personally. I know the way he treated you made you feel like you had nothing left inside. I know you feel used, and I know you feel cheated, and you have every right to do that. I know you feel low about yourself because, well, he put you in a terrible situation. And it's awful what happened to you. But like I said, this is not easy. If you can, don't take it personally. Why? Well, dealing with an addict, whether it's a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, is not like dealing with a normal person. And it's not to say people that have addictions aren't normal. It's not to lessen anyone who does happen to be an addict, but they do not behave in a way that makes sense or computes to people that are sober or who do not have a problem with addiction. They are driven by entirely different things than you are if you're not an addict, and you just can't relate to it because to you and me, logic doesn't enter into it. Common sense doesn't enter into it. When you're on the receiving end of it, it's almost impossible not to take it to heart. It's almost impossible not to let it rip your heart out. But I would tell you, if you can, remind yourself whenever you get the chance that you should not take it personally. That guy, being an addict, would take advantage of anyone and everyone possible to help them keep their life going and ultimately feed their addiction. Addiction is a weird thing. The people that are going through addiction, it's funny because everyone's responsible for themselves, and everyone should be able to hold themselves up to the same standard of behavior and what's normal and what's acceptable and what's all right to do to another person. But an addict often cannot, doesn't see the world the same way. And it makes no sense to you and me. It makes no sense, and it's almost impossible not to let it be a giant kick in the teeth, but you can't take it personally. It's not to say that it isn't their fault, because they are responsible for their own actions, but they are not operating with the clutch fully engaged. So first and foremost, I would tell you, don't take it personally. I know that sounds like a weird thing, but they're someone with an addiction and you happen to be the person in their path. And that's very, very unfortunate for you. But they weren't willfully seeking you out and abusing you because there was something about you that was worth less than other people. They were doing it because they could, and they would have done it to literally anyone. Makes it especially complicated when you are in a relationship with someone. Makes it especially complicated when you are in love with someone. And I do not envy you. It's a very tough thing. But I'll say it again, don't take it personally when at all possible. And finally, well, not finally, but next, I would remind yourself whenever you can that you are worth more. All of these things are going to take time. But if you keep telling yourself not to take it personally, if you keep reminding yourself that you are worth more than what you dealt with, than what you had in your life for however long this happened. Well, that will be a big start to repairing some of the damage that might have been done. Don't take it personally. Remind yourself you're worth more. And if other people who are addicts come into your life, or if they're in your life, I would double down on that, because you are worth more. You are worth more than someone who is going to make up for their own financial instability with your generosity. You are worth more than someone who's going to take advantage of you when they can't afford their medication, or they can't be bothered to do their own laundry, or they ran out of quarters and can't go to the laundromat. I don't know how he was living. I don't know if he could do his own laundry, but you're worth more than that, so much more. And I don't know your circumstances. I don't know what your life has entailed. Maybe you thought this guy's behavior was acceptable because of something you'd been through early on in life. Maybe you had a formative relationship with an emotionally unavailable addict early on. Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was a first boyfriend. I don't know. I don't know how the idea that any of that was acceptable got introduced to your mind, but somewhere along the way it did. And it's not. It's not okay. It's not okay to treat someone that way. But, well, you sound like a loving, compassionate, caring person. And, it sounds like they were the type of person that would take advantage of that. And remind yourself next time you see that happen in your life that you are worth more. Keep telling it to yourself over and over again, because you are. And then think about what that would look like. Think about what being worth more would be like in the real world, in your future. And often, I think this stuff comes down to relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, significant other, whatever the case may be. I think these scenarios play out over and over again in relationships. If someone comes into your life who is an adult, who doesn't have their life together enough to do things like pay their own bills, take you out to dinner, purchase their own medication, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess it's not something you need in your life. And that sounds harsh, and that sounds cold, and that sounds like I'm diminishing someone who is an addict. I am not. It's a tough, complicated situation. Addiction. It is hell for the person going through it. It is hell for the person that goes through it with them. So it can sound discompassionate. It can sound cold. It can sound tough to say, you're like that. You're an addict. You're unable to pay your own bills. You don't have your life together, and you're asking me to give you rides to and from work and do your laundry. No, that's not going to be something I do. Because you want to be caring, you want to be compassionate, you want to repair damage you see in other people, because ultimately we all care about each other and we want to see each other be okay. But I would say it's not something for you, not something you need in your life. You're feeling the effect of it right now, and I'll remind you by saying it again, you're worth more. Pay attention to people's actions, not their words. It's a tough thing to do, because people will tell you the right things and then they'll act a different way, and you'll want to believe whatever it is in you that made you feel like that was acceptable. And I'm just guessing. I don't know you. I don't know your situation, but I'm guessing that whatever it was in you that made you feel like being treated like that was acceptable, this might not have been the first time this has happened. And it seems unthinkable. But pay attention to people's actions, not what they say. And I know, it sounds cold, spotting this sort of behavior and cutting someone off or cutting them out of your life. Or maybe doing like what you said, limiting the access to your life. You told this guy he had to pack up and move out. And what did he do? He started seeing someone else because you set boundaries. You said, hey, you can't be Drinky the Clown and be in my home. It's not going to work. So you're going to have to get out. Where he went, who he stayed with, I don't know. But he wasn't getting enough from you anymore, so he moved on to someone else. It's tough not to take it personally because it feels like a betrayal. You had a romantic relationship with him. Maybe you loved him. Maybe he loved you. But ultimately, it sounds like when you stopped enabling him, when you stopped saying it's okay to be under my roof and be this way, well, he was forced to find somebody else who might be a little bit more agreeable for however long that lasts before that runs out and he's got to move on to someone new. Now, the one unbelievably sad thing about addiction is no matter how much they could want to get clean and sober for you and want to turn their life around for you, you can't change until you decide you're going to. Being a drug addict, being an alcoholic, having any kind of issue with addiction is something that you can't confront for someone else. You got to do it for yourself. You have to decide, or rather they have to decide that they're going to do something about their addiction. And they may be successful, they may be not. But they're not going to do it for you. They have to do it for themselves. That much I do know. And it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing because, like I said, this might sound a little cold. This might sound dismissive of addicts and alcoholics and people struggling with addiction. It is not. It is not to say they are less than. But it's a tough, complicated situation and not necessarily one that you want in your life. And you were right to set those boundaries. And look what happened when you set those boundaries. Ultimately, they left your life. And I think you should feel good about that because, well, it's a tough pill to swallow, him doing the awful things that he did to you. But ultimately, and this should make you feel good, that kind of use of you, that kind of taking advantage of you came to an end when you said, nope, you can't live here anymore. So as much as it's difficult and painful, you got him out of your life and got that abusive, manipulative behavior out of your life by setting boundaries for yourself out of respect. That is something that should make you stand up tall and feel good about yourself. And it's a tough situation because you love them. You care about them. They're addicts. Being around them isn't easy. It isn't fun. It is carnage and destruction wherever they go, at least from my personal experience of being around addicts. But you still like them, maybe sometimes even love them. I think Mitch Hedberg, remember the great Mitch Hedberg, comedian who sadly died of a heroin overdose? He had an interesting thing to say about alcoholism. He was like, they say alcoholism and addiction are diseases, but they're the only diseases that people get mad at you for having. Damn it, Otto, you're an alcoholic. People say that, but they never say, damn it, Otto, you have lupus. And it's true. It's a tough situation to navigate because on the one hand, they have a disease. On the other hand, it doesn't make it okay for them to treat you the way that guy did. I remember I was never in a relationship, a romantic relationship. I never dated an addict, but I've dealt with them in my life. I remember a guy who I was really close friends with. I used to play music with him. We would have a great time jamming out. We played some shows. It was awesome. I love the guy. He was fantastic. He was a really good friend. Somewhere along the way, he, like many other people I knew at the time when it was a wave kind of sweeping America, he became addicted to opioids, pain pills. And I saw him kind of going downhill, and I was concerned. I spoke to him about it, and nothing really changed, but he assured me he was okay. And we kept making music together, except for a couple times where he came to rehearsals blitzed. It was still an awesome time. And while I wished he would get his life together, there wasn't really a consequence for him being in mine. Until there was. I remember he was like, hey man, you know your guitar rig? Can I take that home? I just want to jam out a little bit. And I play one instrument, and I'm looking to improve my guitar playing. And if you're not using it, I'm just going to take it from our little jam room and take it home. And I was like, yeah, sure, go for it. Go nuts. Hey man, do you have that amp? Could you bring it back? I kind of need to use it for something. Oh, that. And he spun the most cockamamie, made-up BS yarn I have ever heard about how it got run over by his brother's truck while I was in his garage or something like that. I don't remember what it was. But I knew, as the words came out of his mouth, that he'd sold it. And he spent the money that he got from it on whatever it was he was addicted to. And I know about it. He knows about it. We've spoken about it a little bit. He deeply regrets it. He has promised over and over again to buy me a new one, pay me back. I think it was about 10 years ago. I've yet to get a check. And, well, it was something I knew instinctively, that dealing with addicts, hanging out with addicts, means there's a pretty good chance your stuff's going to get stolen. But I didn't think it. I didn't see it. This was my friend. This was my good friend. We'd laughed together. We had rocked stages together. We'd had a great time together. Life with him was a laugh all the time. But he was an addict. He stole some stuff, and he sold it for drugs. And I was like, yeah, we're not going to be hanging out together anymore. Pay me back when you can pay me back. But as much as I love you, as much as I love making music with you, this is not something that's okay to have in my life anymore. The other thing I would advise you do is maybe hit up an Al-Anon meeting. Now, Al-Anon, and there's all sorts of recovery programs, but Al-Anon, in case you did not know, is not for alcoholics. It's for family members and loved ones of alcoholics. And, well, I went to some Al-Anon meetings back in the day, and I wasn't there for myself as much as I was there to support someone else. And I'll never forget the experience, because the Al-Anon meeting met next door to the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And in the Al-Anon meeting, for the family and loved ones of alcoholics, it was very somber. It was a lot of tears. It was a lot of pain. It was quiet and subdued and, well, difficult. Very, very valuable. And the kind of peer-to-peer counseling that exists there, not so much counseling, but sharing and working through things. And, well, as the old expression goes, it works if you work it and you're worth it. That's the expression. So it's an incredibly valuable thing, but I remember it being totally a microcosm of what the relationship is like between alcoholics and their friends and loved ones and family members, because, well, it was a quiet, somber, difficult thing being in those meetings. Down the hall, where the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting was going on, where the actual people that were alcoholics and addicts and in recovery were hanging out, there was uproarious laughter. There were, I'm sure, times that were very difficult in that room as well. But I always heard people laughing and telling stories, and walked by once on my way to the bathroom and heard something like, "So I'm face down in a dumpster after a 3-day binge, and I decided that," and I was like, oh man. And they're laughing, knowing laughter. Oh, been there. I too have been face down in a dumpster at 3 a.m. It was a much more jovial atmosphere in there. And, well, it is a perfect microcosm, like I said, of the relationships between alcoholics and people that love them, and addicts and people that love them. On the one hand, there they are, kind of whooping it up, sharing war stories of being blitzed. And on the other hand, there's people suffering, trying to pick up the pieces of their lives after having picked up that addict or alcoholic over and over again. It's a complicated thing. It can be emotionally painful to watch someone that you love or care about, fall victim to alcohol abuse. You worry about their health and their well-being. Chances are they're not super reliable. They're not picking the kids up from school. They are not taking care of the household duties. They're not taking out the trash. They're not reliably scooping out the box of cat litter. They're probably not super reliable financially. It leaves you in a difficult spot where you're picking up the pieces. And I'm glad you set those boundaries. And I'm glad he moved on from you after he realized that he couldn't get what he needed to feed his addiction from you anymore. Painful for you, but the right thing to do. So you should feel good about yourself because you stood up and you said, whether you realized you were saying it or not, I am worth more. And you are. And you keep reminding yourself of that. And when something like this comes along in the future, pay attention. Notice what is happening. Pay attention to actions, not words. And like you did with this guy after too long, set your boundaries. And don't allow anything in your life that isn't good for you. And finally, I would say, if you're able to, maybe see a therapist, because I don't know if this is a pattern, but I'm guessing that there's something that anchored in you this belief that his behavior for any length of time was okay, because it wasn't, and it's not. And you allowed it for a while. And you might want to dig into why that is. Because these things are complicated. These things go back deep. These things are so close to us, so deep inside of us that sometimes we can't see. But if you're able to do that, I would advise that you maybe do that. There's all sorts of free hotlines that you can get in touch with. And then the Al-Anon meeting that I was describing, a meeting for family members and loved ones of addicts. As the expression goes, it works if you work it, and you're worth it. And you, my friend, are worth it. Keep telling yourself that. I talk professionally for a living, can you tell? Keep telling yourself that. And let me know how it goes. That is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, this time that you and I spent together, it's the best part of my day. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Have a great one. Later.